Friends, we have all heard of Charles Manson, Ed Gein, Jeffrey Dahmer. I would venture to say that there's a percentage of you who have never heard of this man. This man's name is Isreal Keyes, probably one of the most despicable, horrible trash bag serial killers in the United States. Well, he's not here no more, but I digress. I'm getting ahead of myself. He's responsible for multiple burglaries across the U.S., multiple shmurders. There's no way I could even fit it in within 10 minutes, so I'm not even going to try. Okay, friends? I may do a longer version for the YouTubes, but for the TikToks, let's get into it. Isreal Keyes was born on January the 7th of 1978 in Richmond, Utah. He was the second of 10 kids, and yes, I know what you're thinking. Yes, they were Mormons. And all 10 kids were homeschooled. Nothing wrong with that. However, if you're a dum-dum, you probably shouldn't. Oh, and his parents were dum-dums. Bless them. Well, they lived in California, but they left the Mormon church, moved from California all the way up to Washington. Listen to this, to a one-room cabin. Did I say they have 10 kids? I said they have 10 kids. To a one-room cabin with no running water and no electricity. Do not sign me up for that lifestyle. And when they left the Mormon church, they joined another church called the Ark, which believed in white supremacy Christianity. Those two things do not go together, friends. But this one did. They subscribed to it. All right? Y'all, they actually believed that white people were the descendants of the original Israelites or some kind of garbage, that Adam and Eve were white. It's not biblical, it's not true, it's not correct. These people were nuts. And they also believed in living like the Amish, hence the whole one-room cabin and the no electricity and no running water. I have nothing against the Amish. Anyway, that kind of explains that. But then they left that church and they went to another church. This one is the Christian Israelite Covenant Church, which is kind of the same but a little bit different, which this one believes that the British people, more whites, are the original descendants of the original Israelite people. Y'all, craziness and shenanigans. So all these 10 kids are living in tents outside the house because they ain't no room inside this one-bedroom cabin, okay? And they're hunting for their own food. They're working on farms out in the neighbors' properties, okay, just to live and survive. He actually says he would hunt anything with a heartbeat. So this feller, he's not set up for success. He's like 14 years old. He's like pew-pewing up the neighbors' houses with BB guns. He's setting fires. He's getting all kinds of trouble. Then when he's 14 years old, he goes to the church and he gets it. This is tender, y'all. If you're tender, just swipe up, okay? I get it. If you're tender about animals and such, just go on, okay? He takes a deer to the church or whatnot and he skins it alive. Okay, other kids freak out, and that's when he realizes, hey, there's something different in the medulla oblongata. I shouldn't do this. I'm gonna keep doing it, but I shouldn't do it in front of other people. And that's kind of where his mama started to notice, he's different. And again, trigger warning, if you're triggered by such things, okay, that's when he started torturing some more animals, like a kitty cat, and other kids freaked out. He thought it was real funny. That ain't funny. So anyway, moving on to 16 years old, he's actually a pretty skilled carpenter. He builds actually a cabin for his whole family. He works for a construction company. He is pretty good at that. Give him some flowers. So about this time is where he starts to struggling with his sins, okay? He feeling lustful thoughts for his girlfriend and such. So then his family moves from Washington across the country over to Maine. And they start working on a sap farm to make some syrup and stuff for the Amish folk. Remember, they living like the Amish. Okay, and that's when he decides, hey, I ain't no Christian no more. I'm an atheist. Well, they boot him out. That's what the Amish people do. They'll boot you out of the community for that business. And he says, cool, I'm going to start looking into Satanism. And he says, hey, I'm going to start studying up on doing my first ritualistic shmurder. Now, y'all, at this point, I'm going to start interspersing all the crimes that he admitted to, but the FBI couldn't confirm, or the crimes that they kind of sort of are linking to him, suspecting of him, but can't confirm, along with his little life story. So just keep up here. It was like the summer of 97 or 98 when he admitted to attacking essaying a girl who was like 14 to 18 years old. He don't really know. All right. At a river in Ohio. She was out tubing with her friends. And he said he wanted to shmurder her, but he was too timid. He said he wasn't going to let that happen again. So in July of 1998, he enlists in the army. They send him over to Egypt. Okay. He admits to essaying a lady in Egypt and a lady in Israel. All his army buddies said that he liked a whole lot on the weekends. And I mean like wild turkey, okay? He got a snootful like Otis on the Andy Griffith Show, okay? And then he gets honorably discharged in 2001. And he moves back to Washington. He moves to reservation land. He gets a girlfriend. They have a daughter together. Now, in 2007, he starts a construction company. Remember, I said he's pretty good at that kind of thing, called Keyes Construction. Now, he's great at it, y'all. Now, he also owned 10 acres way back across the country in New York. Now, that's in 2007, but between 2001 and 2012, he's suspected and admitted to committing robberies, and I'm talking about across the country. Some are in Texas, some are in New York, and an arson in Texas. Y'all, he all over. He hippity-skippity and all over the place. It's amazing he didn't get caught. So let's talk about some other shmurders that he may be linked to. The 1996 shmurder of Julie Marie Harris, a Special Olympics medalist. Another mystery shmurder in New York. A Jane Doe in Washington. The 2007 shmurders of Nancy and Joey Pachiccio of Florida. And Randy Ann Goenberg in 2007. This is actually part of the Boca Killer shmurders down in Boca Raton, Florida. They also think he shmurdered Deborah Feldman in 2009. Let's get to what we know he did. On June 8, 2011, he shmurdered both Bill and Lorraine Currier in Essex, Vermont. He tied them both up. He took them to an old farmhouse. He shot Bill. He essayed and strangled her. Their bodies were never found. He absolutely premeditated this because he used a shmurder kit that he had buried 2 years before near their property. And then he buried it somewhere else so he could use it again. He actually said that he buried lots of these shmurder kits all across the country, and they believe him. Now, this next one is the worst. Not that the rest of them were any better, but this one's the worst. So, hang on, trigger, trigger, trigger. On February 1st, 2012, he went to a coffee house up in Anchorage, Alaska, and he kidnapped Samantha Koenig. He took her debit card and some of her property, took her back to his house, tied her up, essayed her, strangled her, and then he left with his family off to a pre-planned 2-week cruise down in New Orleans. The whole time, her body was wrapped up in his shed back behind his house. When he got back, he got out her body. He said, hey, she looks all right. He dressed her up, sat her up, put her makeup on. Trigger. He used fishing line and he sewed her eyelids open. He put a 4-day-old paper in front of her body and he sent a picture to her family, making it look like she was still alive, and asked for a ransom of $30,000 to be put inside her checking account. They sent it thinking she was still alive when she wasn't. He then disassembled her and put her in a lake. He took off with her debit card, and that's how the police were able to track his movements, and they were looking for his car too. They caught it with him in Texas and arrested him. They arrested him on March 13, 2012. They indicted him and set his trial to start for March 2013. And that's when he started spilling about all these crimes. He did ask for his privacy to be respected for his daughter's sake. Isn't that nice? You know, because he cares about her so much. And again, trigger, trigger, trigger. He was up there in the Anchorage Correctional Complex, and somehow he gets a hold of a razor blade, and he commits a very permanent form of self-harm. And that was on December the 2nd of 2012, long before he ever was to go to trial. They found a note underneath his body, and it was kind of like a ode to shmurder. He was very fond of it. They also found a pentagram drawn in blood underneath his bed, along with 11 skulls with the words, "We are one." That's messed up. Now, like I said, the FBI really does believe that those shmurder kits are all across the country. Can you imagine digging in your yard, hearing a ka-thunk, and digging one of them things up? Yes, I skipped over a lot of details. There was a billion more details. This only gives me 10 minutes, y'all. So I gave you the Cliff Notes. Anywho, this guy deserves trash bag status.